morning, everyone. My name is Andy Benoit. I am the co-chair of the ApplyTexas Advisory Committee. I am the Vice President for Enrollment Management at Texas A&M University at Corpus Christi. It is November 22nd. The time is currently 9:23 a.m., and I would like to call the ApplyTexas Advisory Committee meeting to order. Please be aware that in addition to this meeting in person, part of the members are meeting virtually. Before we get started, we want to formally welcome our newest ApplyTexas Advisory Committee members. They are Brian Armstrong, Callie Blakely, Cynthia Hess, Maria Juarez, Anthony Perez, Catherine Perez, Bianca Rodriguez, Michelle Walker, Lou Waterhouse, Beverly Woodson Day, Patty Young, and our newest student representative, Priscilla Garza. Each of you will have an opportunity to introduce yourself shortly during the roll call. We have a few additional guests joining us today. Welcome, Laura Brennan, Assistant Commissioner for College and Career Advising. Laura could not be with us in person, but it is joining us virtually. We also want to welcome Molly Gully, Senior Director of Advising Strategy with the Coordinating Board, and members of our UT ApplyTexas technical team, Graham Chapman, Assistant Vice Provost and Director of Academic Information Systems, David Muck, Senior IT Manager as well. We would also like to welcome Aaron Lemon-Strauss, Product Consultant for our agency's Division of College and Career Advising. I will now like to take roll call of committee members to confirm that a quorum is present in order for us to be able to conduct this meeting. When I call your name, please introduce yourself by stating your name, title, and introducing your institution. Brian Armstrong.
Good morning. Here, I am Dr. Brian Armstrong. I am the Assistant Vice President for Student Enrollment at Texas Southern University.
Andres Arredondo.
Good morning. My name is Andres Arredondo, and I serve as the Interim Dean of Student Success for Enrollment Management and Advising here at St. Philip's College in San Antonio.
David Barron.
Hi, I'm David Barron, the Associate Vice President for University Enrollment Management here at the University of Texas at Tyler.
Jennifer Beal.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Beal. I am the Director of Admissions and Recruitment for North Central Texas College.
Andy Benoit is present. Callie Blakely.
There we go. My name is Callie Blakely. I'm the Assistant Director of Admissions and Recruitment at Kilgore College.
Cynthia Cortez. Cynthia Cortez is not present. Priscilla Garza is, I believe, absent today. Cynthia Hess.
Hi, I go by Cindy Hess. I'm the Director of Undergraduate Admissions at Tarleton State University.
All right. Maria Juarez.
Hi, Maria Juarez, Director of Enrollment Services at Amarillo College.
Mardell Maxwell. Anthony Perez.
Hi, Anthony Perez, Director of Admissions Processing for Texas A&M San Antonio.
Mardell, are you with us online?
He is. He's here. I don't know if he can hear.
All right, Catherine Perez.
Good morning. I'm Catherine Perez. I am Dean of Enrollment Services at South Plains College.
Bianca Rodriguez.
Good morning, Bianca Rodriguez, Director for Freshman Admissions here at the University of Texas at El Paso.
Stephanie Salazar. Michael Sanders. Is on his way, but he's not with us yet. Michelle Walker.
Good morning. I'm Michelle Walker. I'm the Director of Admissions Operations at Texas A&M University.
Miguel Wazalewski. I probably mispronounced that.
Completely fine. Miguel Waszlewski, University of Texas at Austin, Vice Provost of Admissions.
Lou Waterhouse.
Good morning. Lou Waterhouse, Director for Admissions and Enrollment, Lone Star College.
Amy Williams.
Amy Williams, Director of Admissions and Recruitment, Central Texas College.
Beverly Woodson Day.
Good morning, Beverly Woodson Day, Assistant Vice President for Enrollment Management and Director of Undergraduate Admissions at Texas State University.
Patty Young.
Good morning. I am Patty Young, Dean of Admissions Records and Testing at Dallas College.
Graham Chapman.
Graham Chapman, AVP of Academic Information Systems.
David Muck.
David Muck, Senior IT Manager, University of Texas at Austin.
Okay, Mardell, are you able to speak now?
Yes, sorry, I couldn't hear earlier, and I think I missed my name, but Mardell Maxwell, Executive Director of Admissions, University of Houston.
Okay, Cynthia Cortez is now with us. Cynthia, you want to introduce yourself?
Cynthia Cortez, Admissions and Records Analyst for Houston Community College.
So would we please record now in the minutes that we do have a quorum present? And so now I'm going to introduce Claudette Jinks from the Coordinating Board. Claudette.
Good morning, everyone. Again, thank you for your patience. I'm Claudette Jinks. I'm the Director of Strategic Advising Initiatives and Partnerships at the Coordinating Board, and I assist our co-chairs and with the with overseeing this committee. So I wanted to go over some guidelines since we have some committee members that are on the phone and are via Zoom. We'll review a few meeting guidelines to help us manage the meeting for today. As a reminder, the meeting is an open meeting. It is being broadcast, and that was part of the delay earlier. It's being broadcast for the public and being recorded for later viewing. We ask that members in person, please be sure to mute your microphones. Remember that if the microphone is red, that means you're unmuted. You're muted, but if it's green, you're unmuted, and everyone will be able to hear your conversation. And it's important to go ahead and make sure that it's green so those that are viewing via Zoom can hear you. A quorum has been established via roll call. So in order to keep the quorum, you must keep your camera on at all times. So I see a few of the members off camera, so if you'll put your cameras on so that we know that you're here and present for the meeting. If you're not visible, we are no longer in a quorum and we'll have to stop the meeting. So please be sure to keep those up. There will be time for breaks, so please be sure to return promptly to proceed with the committee business. To manage the committee discussions via the video conference, please identify yourself prior to speaking for the record. We ask that you wait for one person to finish before speaking, otherwise comments may be muddled or unclear. Should the conversation become unmanageable, we'll go ahead and direct you to use the raise hand features that are a part of this Zoom call. I don't think we'll get to that point, but just make sure that if you can you either raise your hand to be recognized if the conversation's too muddled or unclear. For this meeting, if the committee will vote on any items, motions will be voted on by raising your hand in the camera and saying aye in favor, and then no if opposed. At the end of the meeting, please be aware that the meeting is still being recorded. So upon adjournment, we ask that you keep your comments limited so staff can stop the meeting or stop the recording. Are there any questions before we move to the next item? Please unmute yourself if you have any questions. We want to make sure, we just saw we had a late arrival, but Michael Sanders is here, and I'll quickly give him an opportunity to introduce himself. If you'll just press the
Michael Sanders, University of North Texas, Associate Vice President for Enrollment.
Thank you, Michael. So we'll note that in the minutes. Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and move to agenda item number 2. It is the acknowledgement of members finishing their terms. This actually was to recognize those that finished their terms last over the summer. We did have this acknowledgement in the past meeting as well, but we wanted to make sure to let everyone know that we wanted to take the time to acknowledge the great work of those committee members that served their 2-year term and rolled off the advisory committee this past summer. They were Scott Bennett, Chantel Blake, Hannah DeLand, Luis Franco, Jamie Hansard, Laura Isdale, Veronica Lopez, Rebecca Lothringer, and Julia Vickery. Michelle Walker also was served there 2 years, and she is now back on the committee, so we want to welcome her back. We thank you all for your contributions to the committee and hope that you continue to provide recommendations as we improve the ApplyTexas system. And now I'll go ahead and turn it over to Andy.
Okay, so now we move to agenda item number 3, the decision and possible action to select 2-year institution co-chair for 2022, 2023, and 2023, 2024 academic years. Each year, the 2-year and 4-year co-chair rotates off the committee. We have this item on the agenda to allow the committee to seek a new 2-year co-chair and can be oriented over the summer and ready to co-chair the first meeting with me in the fall and beyond. We will now take nominees for the 2-year co-chair. The co-chair will be responsible for assisting the 4-year co-chair in conducting meetings, working on the summer ApplyTexas meeting, and reporting to the board. The co-chair will serve a 2-year term. The co-chair will work closely with me and the coordinating board staff to develop the ApplyTexas Advisory Committee meeting agenda and meeting materials for each meeting to ensure that the agenda is posted to the Texas Register in a timely manner. If you would please review the membership list provided to you in the meeting packet. Members that represent a 2-year institution are eligible. Committee members, I will now take nominations for the 2-year co-chair. You are also allowed to nominate yourself. The floor is now open for nominations. And the folks over that are watching virtually can nominate also. I would like to nominate Jennifer Beal.
I second that.
Okay, we have a nomination on the floor for Jennifer Beal, and it has been seconded. Do we have any other nominations from the floor? First of all, we should probably ask, do you accept the nomination? That's the first thing we should ask, right?
I accept.
Okay. So Jennifer Beal has been nominated by me and seconded by Michelle Walker for the position of co-chair. Last call nominations from the floor. Hearing none, by show of hands on the screen, all in favor of Jennifer Beal, please raise your hand. All those opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations. The committee will reconvene in the fall and beyond, and the coordinating board will continue to coordinate future meetings via doodle poll and be on the lookout for communications from the coordinating board staff going forward for any future meetings past this date. We will now move on to agenda item number 4, which is the overview of the Apply Texas Committee task. Claudette will provide a brief overview of the Apply Texas Committee members' roles and responsibilities. Claudette?
Thank you, Andy. So you all should have received in your meeting packets or meeting materials via email an orientation packet that Deanna Fu sent to you. If you don't have it, please email Deanna and we can get that right to you, but I believe everyone received that. The orientation packet outlines the task set forth for the committee and the rules that provide oversight of the Apply Texas application. The purpose of the Apply Texas Advisory Committee is to discuss and recommend changes that may be needed to the application for the upcoming application cycle. The committee also addresses additional initiatives to strengthen student participation and access into higher education. These tasks may include technical and functional revisions to the common applications and the Apply Texas system, development of training materials for users, recommendations on admission policy, and other activities necessary for the maintenance of the Apply Texas system. So in the packet, you should have seen all the different rules that provide authorization for the role that you play on the committee. The committee is made up of multiple stakeholders, including specific positions from each institution type, both representing 2-year, 4-year institutions, private institutions, and those that use the Apply Texas system. Some of the rules that are provided in here have changed slightly. They will be updated. They're actually going through review, and it's mainly small changes to those rules, and we'll update you as those become effective. One of the things I did want to draw your attention to is on page 3 of the document that was sent out. It should say orientation, new member orientation. One of the things that I like to kind of outline is the cadence of the meetings for this committee, for those of you that are new. Typically, we start off in October. Because of meeting space and location with our change to our new building, we have it in November, but around October, mid-October, late October, we have our first meeting of the year. This is a meeting to level set, to introduce our new members, and to have any questions answered by anyone that has those questions. Then we have another meeting that will set forth from this meeting. The committee is only required to meet 2 times per year by statute. Typically, this committee meets 3 to 4 times. In the past 2 years, I think we've met 3 times. So business has been conducted over those 3 meetings. But know that we are able to meet if you all as a committee agree to meet additional times. That is a time commitment, though, so just know that you would be agreeing as a committee to meet during those times. On page 3 of the document that was provided to you, it says major Apply Texas events. It just outlines the different big events that happen throughout the year, and we start meeting September, October, pretty much. In February and April, this is an optional meeting to prioritize any updates to the application. And then in April and May is typically the end of the year meeting to finalize any priority items or any items that the committee wants to prioritize for the following application cycle. We also have at this time to elect new co-chairs, and it'll be a new 4-year or 2-year co-chair. We're off on our cycle for co-chairs though, so we'll kind of play that by ear this year. In May, May and June is when your term ends as a committee member, whoever's rolling off this cycle. And that usually aligns with the TACRO conference that we usually participate in to provide updates to the TACRO group. So that's sort of what we have for the cadence of your commitments and the major activities for the year. Are there any questions? So for committee meetings, I do work with the co-chairs, as Andy mentioned. I also work with the subcommittee leads and the Apply Texas team to develop the agenda for these meetings. Committee members are also have an opportunity to add any agenda items that at the end of each meeting. So that's just really the brief overview of the role and responsibilities and task of this committee. I know it's a lot of new information for the new members, and it takes a little while to adjust, so please feel free to unmute yourself if you have any questions related to the task and the role that you'll play during this committee. I'll go ahead and turn it over to Andy.
Okay, so moving on to agenda item number 5, the approval of minutes from the May 11th, 2022 meeting. In the meeting materials, if you would please find the minutes that were held on that particular day and take a few minutes to review those. Please let us know if there are any changes or edits. Are there any changes to the minutes? All right, hearing none, do I have a motion for approval of the minutes? And if you would, if you're on the call, please state your name for the record if you are making a motion or seconding.
David Barron, UT Tyler. I make a motion to approve the minutes.
Okay, so a motion has been made by David from UT Tyler. Is there a second?
I'll second. Amy Williams, Central Texas College.
Okay, seconded by Amy Williams. All those in favor will please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those
Aye.
opposed? All those opposed, please say no. All right, motion carries. We will now move to agenda item number 6. Agenda item number 6 is an update on the future of the ApplyTexas system. I will now turn it over to Claudette again, who will provide that update on the future of the ApplyTexas system.
Thank you, Andy. So I wanted to review where we are and where we were and where we are now in the process of seeking a new solution for ApplyTexas. Last April, the coordinating board received approval to solicit a new solution for the management of ApplyTexas. This was in preparation for the end of our agency's contract with the current vendor, which is University of Texas at Austin. This contract is set to expire at the end of August of 2023. So an RFO was posted on September 26th of 2022, and the deadline to submit those proposals was October 26th. So we've just now begun reviewing proposals and anticipate a new solution will be selected and awarded on or around December 1. By July 1, 2023, a new and enhanced ApplyTexas application for the 23-24 school year will be open on its new platform. The redesign of ApplyTexas came from this committee, the ApplyTexas Advisory Committee, and other stakeholders that provided feedback in being guided with a focus on improving the student, counselor, and institution experience. We've heard loud and clear that institutions need a better way to get data, and will be creating integrations with Slate and other potentially other systems. So we have several key principles that are guiding our work now. It's an increased overall application volume by making it easier for Texans and out-of-state students to apply to our Texas colleges and universities by building the application process into existing experiences. We also want to improve the data availability for our institutions by creating new integration mechanisms while ensuring that any institution that wants to keep things as they are able to do so. We also want to ensure zero disruption to the student, counselor, and institution experience by keeping that keeping what works and only requiring changes to those workflows where they align with the student, counselor, and institution staff that are already doing, that's already happening elsewhere. We will provide monthly summary emails to our ApplyTexas Advisory Committee members and more detailed progress at every ApplyTexas meeting, ApplyTexas Advisory Committee meeting. That said, if there are any of you all as ApplyTexas Advisory Committee members who would like to go deeper, and we'll be forming a subcommittee this year that will meet every other week for an hour to provide more tactical feedback on the process and design choices. So please let me know if you're interested in that subcommittee. We will start working once we have a vendor selected. So if you're interested in participating, just email me, and we'll be willing, if you're willing to carve out that time throughout that process. We also want to welcome any feedback, and Andy, this is probably something that you might be able to assist us with in your subcommittee, but in communicating to the broader K-12 and institution communities so that they're aware of the changes and the timings for trainings that are going to come up. So I'm also going to bring up my colleague, Molly Gully, who's going to share a little bit about some of the other work we're doing in preparing for a new solution for ApplyTexas.
Good morning, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Molly Gully. I'm the Senior Director of Advising Strategy with Claudette in College and Career Advising. And I just wanted to let you know about some of the pre-work we've been doing in order to prepare for the new ApplyTexas. We partnered with Vidlet. So Vidlet is a digital research platform that uses mobile video to help gain insights and understand unmet needs, behavior, and emotions while communicating findings through the power of video. So they conducted empathy research for us from the end users of ApplyTexas. So high schoolers, transfer students, the people who are actually using the tool. Our plan was to show you a video of their finalized work. And then we literally just a few seconds ago realized that this is on a live stream, and these are students who have privacy. And so we won't be able to show you this video today, but I do want to let you know that the impact of this research will be passed on to the selected partner who will be redesigning ApplyTexas, and gave us huge insights into how we can make this more student-centered, how we can reduce the barriers and challenges of the application, and gave us really concrete paths forward in order to move forward with that. And so I just wanted to take a moment and see if anyone had any questions, either here in the room or virtually, about the work that we performed with Vidlet.
Michelle Walker, Texas A&M. Are you going to share that video with committee members and perhaps share the feedback, the concrete ideas?
We are checking with our Chief Privacy Officer, but our intention is that we hope that we'd be able to share it with this group, but privately.
Just a brief comment, thank you for looking at the various feedback elements of the students and everything. That's important through this process. I think all of us that deal with applications and have for a long, long time, and the process of providing student services and opportunity, I think it's important. So kudos to you for that.
Thank you.
I have one question. This is Jennifer Beal, North Central Texas College. Texas is ginormous. We all know this, right? So do we know how many students' responses we actually got back during this?
I don't have off the top of my head, but we did make sure that we captured, across the state of Texas, and that we really captured a good cross-section of the state, both just from demographics, rural, urban, suburban, first generation, all the different kind of subsections that you would want to be looking at. We also specifically did some work with top 10% students, and so that was also a different population that we looked at. Thank you. I'll pass it back over to Claudette if there are no other questions.
Are there any other questions from the video Zoom? Give you guys an opportunity to unmute yourselves. Go ahead and move on to the next agenda item.
All right, so agenda item number 7 is an update from the Strategic Planning Subcommittee. For those new to the committee, we have 4 subcommittees that were created to target specific areas of our committee work, and they include strategic planning, communications, K-12 collaboration, and residency logic. So the first committee report will be that of the Strategic Planning Subcommittee, and that is led by Miguel. So the purpose of this subcommittee is to discuss, plan, and implement long-term strategic changes to the ApplyTexas applications. Miguel, do you have a report?
Yeah, so for really sort of my comments are kind of a connection to what Claudette was mentioning. Being in this process of folks selecting a new solution for ApplyTexas, it really is sort of this process now where that happens, and then whatever solution is identified within the process, the standard process for doing that for the state, then leads to us being able to provide assistance as needed for that process. And so for now, we're sort of on pause until we get a idea of what that solution is. And then I think there'll be a number of things directed either through that process or through this committee that will lead us to provide assistance as needed within that. But at this point, we're sort of on pause until we get that direction from the actual solution. So that's all I have for today.
Are there any questions for Miguel? All right, hearing none. The second subcommittee is the Communications Subcommittee, and that is led by me. The purpose of the subcommittee is to create and implement a communication plan for stakeholders, including higher education institutions, counselors, and other users. And I have a brief report, and just like Miguel, it is tied to the fact that with the necessitating changes that are going to be coming aboard, we will have to address the increasing opportunity for us to be able to communicate all the different additions, corrections, changes that are going to be involved. So I do want to make the shameless plug for all of our new members. Communication can't just happen by 1 or 2 or 3 people. We are going to need a committee, a subcommittee that is going to be active in this process and be able to get the information out. Over the course of the last 6 months, we've designed a communication template as far as a newsletter that can get information out to our membership and beyond. But we do need a functional committee to be able to get information, to be able to put in that document, to be able to send out. So I do encourage all those of you that are new or current members, if you would like to be a member of this committee, please let me know. I do welcome folks. The plan is, as this process unfolds, we will meet periodically, probably about 2 weeks to a month before the scheduled board meeting, to be able to update information, and as the need arises, to meet to be able to talk about the opportunities for touch points along the way. Along with that, we have discussed in the past opportunities for us to be able to share information with our various constituencies, not only our higher education institutions throughout the state of Texas, but also with our K-12 partners. So that is also going to be an integral role for the committee going forward as we make the necessary changes. Are there any questions for me? All right, hearing none. The next subcommittee is the K-12 Collaboration Subcommittee, and that is led by Jennifer Beal. The purpose of the subcommittee is to collaborate with high school representatives and authorized users to advise on the Counselor Suite and the ApplyTexas application. Jennifer, do you have a report to present?
Yes, so the subcommittee met in August with the counselors and admissions people around the state. We have large institutions, small institutions, large ISDs, small ISD counselors. So we tried to get a really good grasp of how the Counselor Suite is working for all of them. And we have three things that we wanted to bring back to this committee. These are definitely going to be things that we need to think about with the new application since we are moving to this new one. The first thing is that they reported that the financial aid information that is being passed when a student starts a financial aid application, it gets passed to the counselor suite as they started it. But if the student completes it, that status never gets changed to completed. So the counselors are having a hard time figuring out who's actually completed the FAFSA versus just started the FAFSA. So that was the first one. The second one, they asked if there was the potential that we could add a field of local ID, such as the high school ID, onto the ApplyTexas application. From the counselor's point of view, they are seeing in their suite students that are not necessarily their students because maybe they just chose a random high school to stick in there, or they chose the wrong one. There's high schools that have the same name, things like that. And so they wanted to have some kind of a ID or something that could identify them so they could look them up as their student. The other benefit that we concluded from this would be at the colleges and universities institution, it would be, they would be able to easily match up documents. So all the high schools are putting the PEAMS ID or the student ID on those documents. So you would have a second round of not just using the name, birth date, last four of social to make those. So that was a recommendation from this committee. And the third recommendation from the counselors is to take the counselor suite a little bit further and not just having the FAFSA information and the ApplyTexas information, but go further with marking on their enrollment, matriculation, and potentially degree completion. And I believe Claudette said that that is something that they've already discussed before, and so that it is something that we could potentially look into. So those are the three things that came out of this meeting. They also had just started with the seniors applying, so we're going to meet again to see how they're going mid-year and see if they have any other recommendations to bring to the next meeting.
Jennifer, I have a question about the marking enrollment and degree program. Can you give us a little bit more information about that? I'm not sure what that means.
So I think what they were kind of talking about is they can see that the student has applied to that school. They can see that they have done a FAFSA. They don't know necessarily if the FAFSA has gone to that school, but they can see that they've completed a FAFSA. But I think they wanted to make it even bigger to see if of the applications that they've done, if they applied to 5 schools, the students, which ones actually were they accepted at? Which ones did they matriculate? Did they complete a degree there? So it's like really bringing everything into the one ApplyTexas suite. That's a big ask, I know, but it's all in one spot.
Oh, thank you. That's helpful. I'm just capturing this information because, as you know, I think we've talked about this in different types or different groups and opportunities, but we are building larger or bigger application solutions. And I have my colleague Molly who could probably provide some additional insight, but we are looking at creating this space with My Texas Future where a student might be able to have all that information in one location. And as we're learning and building these things, it's good to have these recommendations to think through how we could best support our students, our counselors, and our institutions as well. So this is helpful information. I can't say that we can get that done in every sense, but it's really because of the data flows that come in. And I think we've had this conversation informally last year, but for those that are new, what we're talking about is the ApplyTexas Counselor Suite that's part of the ApplyTexas system. And this Counselor Suite assists counselors and authorized users to be able to see a student's application admission process or the application process. So where the student is in the ApplyTexas application essentially is what a counselor does see. We did have a review of that last year, I believe. I think it was last year. Just so you all could see what a counselor might be able to see in the counselor suite. So if that's beneficial for anyone here, we could do that again this year for those that are new. In addition to the admission or the application process in the counselor suite, there is a small set of data that comes to our agency from the U.S. Department of Education, and we're able to put, bless you, we are able to put a few components of that data in the counselor suite so a counselor can identify if a student, one, started the application, the FAFSA application, and then also if they've completed and when they've submitted. So there is just a few elements that we're able to share of that FAFSA data. We're going to replicate that process with the TASFA data, since we are also building the online Texas application for state financial aid, and that's going to be incorporated in there as well. So we're trying to assist those counselors in identifying those students that are going to apply and complete the FAFSA or the TASFA. So, but because of that data is coming from the U.S. Department of Ed, there's limits on what we can share in the counselor suite. But if we know some of the desires or the interest of our counselors and what would be helpful to help assist students get to where they need to go, this is still something we'll take under consideration and recommendations for future work. So I appreciate all the work you and the committee have done. So thank you.
Any other questions for Jennifer? Hearing none, we're going to move on to the agenda item 10, which is the report from the Residency Logic Subcommittee led by Amy Williams. The purpose of the subcommittee is to review the logic of the residency questions on the ApplyTexas applications. Amy, do you have a report to present?
Hi, yes, thank you. The Residency Logic Subcommittee, we met a few times over the past year in which we analyzed residency question, logic, and flow. At the May meeting, the requests from the Residency Logic Committee were documented and they are noted in the meeting notes. We then shared our findings in a request at the summer TACRO event. It was stated that these were requests and may not be implemented until the next cycle. In our pre-meeting, we had some discussions, and due to the new solution search, some of the heavier items that we had requested that require conditional logic and adding new questions in, those may be moved to the new system. They have been heard and documented, so they are on the record. However, in the pre-meeting, we did discuss some things, some small changes that we could do as soon as possible, but these small changes will be impactful. I'm going to go over some of those changes, and then also I'd like to go over the other changes that were requested. The very first one is when you get to the ApplyTexas application and you get to that Texas residency section, there's a section, there's the very last sentence says, if you believe you're eligible for Texas residency and claiming Texas residency, make sure you answer United States to of what country are you a resident, and Texas to of what state are you a resident. Now, in our experience working with in a very fast-paced environment with our students that read very fast, with us that we read very fast, we fear that sometimes our students don't make it to that sentence. So what we've asked is, can we highlight it? Can we bold it? Something that doesn't require a vote, but something that is going to be impactful for the students so they don't miss this question. Additionally, we had discussed, and I do believe maybe this should go to a vote, removing of what country are you a resident of, but instead beginning with of what state are you a resident of. So we'll say, what state are you a resident of, Texas, and then if they put whatever state they put, then they will get the country question. Because as some of you have noticed, filling out test applications and the applications you've received, and what we notice is if they don't put Texas, well, first, if they don't read the statement, they're not going to put Texas in there. So if they don't put Texas, they don't have the opportunity to answer the resident questions. And again, the goal is to let the technology do the work, right? We want these students to get these systems and not have to contact us and be like, whoa, no, I am a Texas resident. Okay, well, now you have to fill out a core. We want to make sure we're tackling this at the front. And another justification for that was that SB, the 1528 students, they are not of what country you're resident, they may say, they may not put United States. Again, they may have not read it or they may have not understood it. So again, this would capture that population. Now, you may think, hey, that question is in the profile. Well, that question is in the profile, but that question doesn't calculate within the residency. And that was one that we can get done. I'm gonna have to get my notes to find out what else we could say we could get done pretty quickly. But another thing that we had requested and we're hoping can move pretty quickly is on the profile section. Instead of starting with the social security number, we would like to start with the family name, your last name, your name. And if possible, and I understand that it has to do with the setup, but if possible, move the social security question to the citizenship page as conditional logic. Now, we've been told that sometime back, we did have the social security number as a required question, but it wasn't built on conditional logic. So we're hoping that now that we've presented it in this way, that if a student does say, yes, they are a US citizen, that they do get that drop down box and they are going to be required to fill out that social security number. Why is this so important? I think most of us know why it is here sitting at the table, but let's go ahead and talk about it. Federal legislation relating to the HOPE tax credit, lifetime tax credit, makes it mandatory that all post-secondary institutions report social security numbers to the IRS. The IRS requirement makes it mandatory for colleges to collect social security. A student may refuse to disclose a social security number, but then the student is subject to a fine under the IRC section 25A. Institutions, we are penalized as well if we do not report social security numbers. Speaking from experience, my institution, we were fined $270 per student if we had an incorrect social security number or no social security number with the student name. Another thing, it's mandatory to collect social security numbers for third-party billings, payments, conditions, federal data collection, tracking benefits, issuance of the 1098-T, and lastly, all graduating high schools are now required in Texas are now required to fill out the FAFSA or opt out. And a social security number must be provided in order for our systems, our student information systems, to match the financial aid, the ISR that comes in, right? So if we don't have a social security number, but the student filled out the FAFSA, then they're kind of just floating in cyberspace until you match them. So that is a big request that we would like to see happen, and I'm not sure if we would need the guidance again from the board, if this is something that we can make a decision on as a committee, or if it has to go higher. We did ask for the qualifying visa, House Bill 1 and I'm sorry, not House Bill, HB 1 and 01. That one's a little bit of the heavy lifting I was talking about, because we wanted to, if they selected a sponsored eligible visa, we wanted to be able to put in more questions. In that it might be a little bit heavy. The citizenship, U.S. military, I believe there needs to be more statuses instead of grouping your dependent and your spouse together. I come from a very heavy military institution. We are in Killeen, Texas, Fort Hood, right next to Fort Hood. It's a very transient community, so we are often collecting all of this data. And for my guidance, it's the more you have on this, the higher you are on these lists, right? Your best vets and things along those lines. So we do want to help the institutions in that type of way as well. I would like additionally to add some more conditional logic to the military service member, because they would have had to go to that Texas residency section to receive the question for the LESs. A lot of us, we have to give these students these waivers, right? These military waivers. So if we don't see what state they are in, then we're having to do extra work. So again, this goes back to letting the technology work for us. And then lastly, we went over some of the verbiage. I'm not quite sure if this belongs to us, because we were really assigned to look at the residency flow, the questions, and see how all of that is working out. So if Miguel Skolaski, So I'm so sorry. Would like to, if you want to meet, I'm happy to pass off this information, but, just some mouse overs over some of the terms that some of the students don't understand. Feedback from some students is, why do you need, what is liquidation of an asset? Why do you need to know this of my parents? Just kind of explaining that. But in that note, I would like to say that going through this application many, many times to create these presentations, I think that David and all of the staff that worked on this did a great job. It is really outstanding. Even some of the words that are kind of tricky, he goes in and explains them, and it's just, I don't want this to be taken in any kind of way that it's, we're like, oh, this needs to be done, this needs to be done. It was done great, but there's always room for improvement. I say that about my cooking. The next one was a pretty big one, and it was just more of a legal question, the step parent and stepchild, and of course, I was given guidance that that would need to go higher. So, again, that is a lot, and I know I do speak fast, but a lot of it was documented in the notes, in the meeting notes, and I'm sure they'll be documented again. So thank you so much. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer any.
Anyone have any questions for Amy?
A lot of work. So thank you and your committee for doing that. I know we're in a unique time where we're in the middle of that new solution, but like all of these recommendations are coming in and we'll be looking at that as a priority.
Yeah, I just want to echo Claudette. Thank you very much. And thank you for the kind words also. But I definitely think there was a lot of good work done. And I hope that keeps going and that we really should be taking a good look at restructuring some of that residency logic.
So, and just for those that are new and here in the room, we are looking, there are some, as Amy mentioned, there are some things that we're determining what needs to go to our legal for consideration, because although the committee may vote and you have some great recommendations, there is those possible legal aspects that we have to get to. So just know that we're going to be working very closely with that subcommittee to make sure that we're doing everything we need to do appropriately, so just know that.
Okay, so on the agenda next, we have for a bit of a break. So if everyone is amenable to that, we can either take a break for about 10 or 15 minutes and then come back. Is everyone good with that? Okay, so if we would, let's go ahead and take a 15-minute break and come back at 10:31. It is now 10:16. So we stand in recess. All right, everyone, we are now back in session. Since we are back in session, I'll need to call roll again so that we can reestablish our quorum present. So if you would, please confirm that you are present with us. We'll start off again with Brian Armstrong.
Present.
Andres Arredondo.
Present.
David Barron.
Present.
Jennifer Beal.
Present.
Present. Callie Blakely. Cynthia Cortez.
Present.
Priscilla Garza is absent. Cynthia Hess.
Present.
Maria Juarez.
Present.
Mardell Maxwell.
Present.
Anthony Perez.
Present.
Catherine Perez.
Present.
Bianca Rodriguez.
Present.
Stephanie Salazar. Michael Sanders.
Present.
Michelle Walker.
Present.
Miguel Wazalewski.
Present.
Lou Waterhouse.
Present.
Amy Williams. Beverly Woodson Day.
Present.
Patty Young.
Present.
Graham Chapman.
Present.
And David Muck.
Present.
We all accounted for. So now we will move on to agenda item 11, and that is the update from the ApplyTexas technical team. David Muck will now provide an update from the ApplyTexas technical team. This will include updates from the current cycle, and we'll now turn it over to David.
Thank you, Andy. Some numbers first. So for the fall 2022 semester, which is still incomplete, some schools are still taking applications. We've seen an increase of 19% in total applications and an increase of 12% in submitted applications compared to November 1st of last year for the previous fall cycle. And for the fall 2023 semester, right now we're looking at an increase of 12% in total applications. So total applications is started applications, saved plus submitted, and a decrease of 10% in submitted applications, again, compared to the same time period last year. Update all three of our main portals, the applicant, administrative, and counselor portals are all now fully hosted in the cloud on AWS, and the legacy systems have been retired. We rolled out several new features, mainly aimed at administrators over the course of this spring, summer, and fall. Some new reporting features and new self-service features for administrators. And the last update I've got is we are in the midst of an effort to retire the desktop version of Quick and Easy for applications. Those of you that use it know that it's a Java-based desktop app that you can download from our administrative site. We're looking to move that to a web-based option, posted probably on our administrative site. And then we've also started a survey. We're trying to collect preferences for a longer term solution of that functionality, what folks are looking for to get out of it, pain points, that type of thing. So we'll at least have that data collected for the new vendor. And that's all I've got. Any questions?
Questions for David?
David, I have a question. This is Beverly Woodson Day, Texas State. When will the survey go out and who will it go to?
The survey went last week. We sent it out to our listserv, And then we also have posted a link to it in the administrative site.
Any other questions? Hearing none, thank you, David. We'll move on to agenda item 12, and that is the discussion and possible action to adopt recommendations regarding ApplyTexas forms or procedures. This item will allow the committee to discuss recommendations to the board and ways to improve the ApplyTexas application. I will now also invite David to share those items that were discussed and tabled last year and any new items that were received over the summer for consideration. Recommendations will be documented and discussed for future application cycles. David?
Thank you. So the first proposal we have came from Houston Community College. They would like to see the physical address county code included in the data we transmit in EDI format every day. Context for this request is we do currently include that physical county for some of the 4-year application types. I'm not sure what the history behind not also including it with 2 years is. My recommendation would be to move forward with this. But that's, anyway, that's the context around that. You want me to move on through all of these and then have discussion?
Yes.
Okay. Second proposal is to include Duolingo as one of the standard tests that is presented to applicants on the application form. Currently, we're collecting the date they took, whether they took and the date they took the SAT, ACT, and then for internationals, there are the IELTS and the TOEFL. Thank you very much. And then there's also some graduate tests we collect also, but that's the proposal, is to include Duolingo. Context for this is we did have a similar request in the last cycle that was tabled.
Wasn't there a request for PTE scores as well? I think that
Yes.
was it. Yeah, Pearson.
Yes, it was. Yeah, it was the Pearson test.
Yeah.
So quick
The third
question on this Duolingo. So did a college or a member submit that request, or did the vendor submit that request to add Duolingo?
Yes, sorry, I should have included that originally. It was, that request was submitted by 2 different colleges, St. Edward's and the University of Houston.
Great, thank you.
The next proposal is and this is by St. Edward's also. This is a proposal to allow applicants to self-report their best test score. The context I can provide for this is at one time we did have those fields for applicants to self-report SAT and ACT, and we removed them. I'd have to go back and look, but I think 5 or 6 years ago we removed those self-reporting scores. And then the last proposal is a proposal to require the gender question on the application in order to comply with state reporting requirements. Currently, that question is not required. It's a binary option, and if the applicant chooses not to answer it, we send a U for unknown in the EDI. And context I can provide for that also is I believe that came up either just last year or the year before.
Who submitted that one?
That was Dallas College, sorry.
I just wanted to circle back and let our new members understand what we're going through in case it's not clear. Typically in this process, we have reviewed or have received, and when I say they, I mean UT Austin has in their administrative portal a place where you're able to, an institution's able to submit recommendations to this committee for consideration. And so at this point, we review those recommendations. The committee itself will typically prioritize, I'm sorry if it's too loud, I'm trying to be enough away, prioritize those recommendations. And so we typically review these at the committee, as a committee, during the meetings, and then you prioritize in May is when they're typically finalized of whether or not this recommendation will be moving forward. If there's a need for additional questions or anything like that, you can also say, we need more information about this request. For this year, we're in a unique position because we are moving to a new vendor solution. But if you guys recall, when UT was moving to a new mainframe, we were serving in a similar capacity where we were collecting recommendations from anyone who needed them, any institution who made those recommendations and made those considerations and prioritized them through that process. And if there were small changes, those were things that we could probably do, as maybe Amy mentioned earlier. If it's like a language change or a logic change, those are things that require bigger effort of work. And so those can't easily be done on the back end with our UT ApplyTexas team. But if there are things that are minor, like we need to bold a section or something that's a smaller lift, that can be done and applied fairly quickly from my understanding. So I just wanted to let you all know that are new to this committee that that's the process typically, and that's what we're reviewing now. These are the items that came in over the summer for consideration for this committee this year. And then we also have a list of those items that were tabled from the previous year that can be reconsidered. And typically we talk to those institutions to let them know what the outcome is. Some of these the committee can say we're not going to proceed with that recommendation, whether it's because it's too big of a lift or it just doesn't make that sense. But remember, you all as a committee are working for the entire state of Texas and not specific to any one institution. So that's the kind of the culture and the flow of what we do for this particular section. And this is a time for discussion. You can unmute yourself, you can say, and I'll give you, David, an opportunity to talk through those other tabled items, I believe. I just wanted to make sure that those that are new understand what this section's related to. Are there any questions about that? I'm looking at our monitor. I should be looking on here, but I'm looking. It doesn't seem like there's any questions. So thank you. David, go ahead with the next tabled items.
Did you mean the tabled items from this past spring?
Yeah, if there were any that we needed to table. If not, you guys can open up for discussion for if there is.
Let me review them real quick. Sorry.
We may have voted through all of those last year, but I just wasn't sure.
Yeah, let's just go to discussion on the ones I just went over.
And these items should be in your packets under the technical update. David has them outlined, so if you need to refer to them, they're written out in your materials under the ApplyTexas technical team update, and for us in the room, it printed on the back side of that page as well.
Yeah, so to review, the first proposal was to include the physical address county code in the EDI for two-year schools. It's already being included for some of the four-year application types, so this is a two-year only proposal. This would not be a heavy lift at all from our standpoint. However, some two-year schools would probably need time to prepare to receive the new data. So, but from our standpoint, it would not be a heavy lift to do this.
I have a question. Is the EDI data going to come over as the name of the county or the actual county, the number code that's coming over?
I'd have to look at what the 4-year, I should have looked beforehand. I think it's coming in as code and name, but I'm not 100% sure. It would come in similar format to what we're sending the permanent county code. And we are already sending the permanent county code, permanent address county code for 2 years. This is just adding the physical address.
Are you ready for a, what am I trying to say? Motion.
So for this, if you all feel you have enough information to make a vote, you can at this point, and then we can go through that process. Does everyone on the Zoom feel that they're ready to make a decision? Seeing some head nods. Okay.
Michelle, are you making a formal motion?
Yes. Michelle Walker with Texas A&M. I move that we accept this proposal and plan to add that county code to the 2-year app.
Okay, so it's been moved by Michelle Walker that we accept the recommendation. Is there a second?
And Jennifer Beal, North Central Texas College, I'll second that.
Been moved and seconded. Are there any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor,
Yep.
please. Go ahead.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I should have said this originally. I would want feedback from the 2-year schools. Would they like this to be a mid-cycle change? So we give them a date, it'll go into effect, and it'll go into effect, in the next few months? Or is this a change we would roll out only for the next cycle?
Your representatives?
I mean, I think that is going to be different for everyone, because if there is stuff on the back end that we have to do within our SISs, some have very robust, some don't, some have people that do it. So I think that's hard to say. I think in order to give everybody an ample amount of time, whether you're a large institution or a small institution, that it should be something that we do for the next year.
Sounds good?
Okay, so may I make a recommendation at that point, since we've already have a motion on the floor? And before we vote, maybe we make an amendment to the original motion to include that recommendation.
Yes, I move to include that recommendation.
Okay, is there a second to that?
And I'll second that
Okay,
recommendation.
so we have a motion on the floor as amended and seconded. All those in favor, if you would, please raise your hand. All those opposed? Motion carries. Item number 2.
All right, item number 2 is including Duolingo as one of the standard tests presented to applicants on the form. I think this would be additionally a change that would roll out with the next application cycle.
Discussion.
Jennifer Beal, North Central Texas College. So when we had a request like this before, I believe that the discussion was that, there's constantly new tests that are coming out specifically for internationals. And so where do you stop saying you just keep adding more and more and more and more and more test lines on there? I think that since there is not regulated what you can use, and I mean, there is somewhat, but it's not specific, you have to use this one. Institutions can determine what they will determine what they can use for those tests. I think we're just going to keep adding more and more and more, and then it's going to make the application longer. It's going to make it more confusing. If the students are seeing all of these options of tests that they took, well, what if I didn't take these tests, especially the international students? Should I have taken this test? Was I supposed to take this test? I think it's going to cause some confusion. It's just my opinion.
I know we have one of the requesters on the committee. Mardell, did you want to address this at all?
I'm thinking. No, just interested in more. I'm interested in just more comments and feedback on the impact for other institutions and for our students outside of the state as well. But beyond that, I'm open to discussion on this.
So can we ask our constituents here, how many accept Duolingo? So raise your hands if you accept Duolingo.
There are 3 here in the room. I don't know if you can see that.
No, okay. Online. So it doesn't seem to be a majority of our constituents here, and I would guess that would probably reflect the rest of Texas as well. I mean, I know it would help us. I know it would help University of Houston, but again, if that's not something everybody is using, I don't know that it would be appropriate to have it as one of the listed tests.
If I could, in my role as a representative of an institution, I share the concern that Jennifer has as well. It is a slippery slope when there are tons of tests that can demonstrate English competency, and most of us use a variety of them. And so literally, if we start opening the door, I mean, it's a door that can swing for a while.
And I'll say I have no objections to those thoughts, especially if it doesn't represent a majority of our state. And perhaps if that changes in the future, maybe we would reconsider. But for now, that makes sense to me.
I do think on the
Any other
broader
discussion?
stage, Duolingo is broadening its reach, I think, for higher education, but I just don't think it hasn't reached that critical point yet, I think, for acceptance.
So do we want to entertain a motion, or do we want to consider tabling the issue until either further information or such time as we want to bring this back up for discussion to the group? What is your preference?
My recommendation is to
We
table.
just want to withdraw?
Or my recommendation is to withdraw, and it can be reintroduced if the times call for it in the future.
All. Thank you so much. Move to item number 3.
Item number 3 is to allow applicants, add fields to allow applicants to self-report their best test scores.
Discussion?
Just curious how many institutions use self-reported test scores.
Is there an option to upload test scores and then they can manually enter them?
I'm sorry, say again?
Could there be an option to upload? Could that be later down, or maybe with a new solution, we could add this?
Adding upload capability would be a significant effort.
So I'd love to hear from any schools that use the self-reported test scores and how they utilize them.
I mean, I guess we would have to ask Dallas College. They're the ones that submitted it. Like, under what context do you use these self-reported scores?
St. Edwards.
St. Edwards.
Is it St. Edwards?
Yeah.
Maybe we can ask for further information, table this and ask for further information. Or, yeah.
Well, back to David's, Barron's point, is there any institution that uses the self-reporting currently? or know of any institution?
I mean, obviously, they wouldn't have submitted it if they don't use it for something.
How many others
Yeah,
on the
I
call to,
don't-
have
yeah.
us get informed?
Yeah, that's the question. Do we add this for one university that's using it when we previously had it and took it off for a reason because no one's using it? I think you can even opt out of the test score module now, and we opt out.
So we've got a couple of options here. We can either table it for further consideration or to gain more information. On the other hand, we can put this up for consideration immediately with a motion and make a decision. If people aren't using it, do we want to propagate it even further for further study? But if no one's using it, maybe shut it down. So there are options for us here.
I have a question. David, do you know, is there a way to see how many institutions are opting out of the test score module?
Yes, we could look into that. I'd have to run a report, but yes, we could look into that.
I mean, I think in all fairness, we probably should get more information, get the information about how many schools are opting out of the test score possibility, what St. Edward's was potentially the thought of using that, things like that, just for fairness.
So you want to put that in the form of a motion to table?
I motion to table this, to gather more information so that we can make a better determination.
Okay, so moved by Jennifer Beal. Is there a second?
I, David Barron at UT Tyler, second the motion.
Okay, it has been moved by Jennifer, seconded by David to lay on the table. All in favor? Raise your hand. All opposed? Motion carried. That is laid on the table for further information and consideration. All right, item number 4.
The final proposal is the proposal to require the gender question on the application.
Discussion?
This is Michelle Walker, Texas A&M. I assume that has legal implications. Did we look into that yet?
No, we haven't, but since this has continued to come up, and this wasn't specifically the question, it was the use
Right.
of different pronouns or different things that
An
was the
additional
last,
question.
right. So this is a different question than the one we've had from last time.
Well, I do think it's reasonable that if this is a required reporting data point, then we would require it on the app. It's uncomfortable. I know we deal with it. The kids who don't put anything show up on an error report. And then we go and have to look to see if we can identify what their gender is. And for me, it's uncomfortable to input it when they have chosen not to. It gets to be a little odd. So I would much prefer that it be required and we don't have to deal with that.
We have a question from Bianca.
Yes, good morning, Bianca Rodriguez, UTAP. Just a follow-up question to this part of the discussion with the gender requirement and how it's related to our reporting and, just considering our day and age, right? The requirement is a little extreme. Have there been any discussions maybe with the coordinating board on possibly revisiting how we want to report when students refuse to provide gender on the application?
I don't know if there have been. That would be a different division than this committee or this work, but I can look into it. I do know that, if it's a reporting, this is our data division that seeks this information from you. So that's probably where we can start. But what would the recommendation be is for us, what you're asking from this recommendation, if I'm understanding correctly, is to make this question required, right? Okay. But the thing is that do you use this as a admission requirement? And so that's where we get back to this kind of, its intention is for admission, the application's intent is for admissions. But if you're using that information for an admission, that might be the purpose, but if you're using it for reporting, that's another conversation. So we probably need to have that discussion with our general counsel, as we mentioned, our data division, to see if there's any other way, to your point, Bianca, if there's a way to discuss how to get that information. I know that, Cindy, you mentioned some information too. We were having conversation about that also.
So this is Cindy from Tarleton State, and I had actually spoken to Claudette during the break regarding this issue, and we have seen an increase in students not answering. So then our only way to, determine what that answer is usually look at a high school transcript. Where we can run into problems is when it's a transfer student that you don't have a high school transcript and it's not on a college transcript. And so either, I like Bianca's suggestion of maybe if the coordinating board could allow an unknown answer, that way it doesn't put us in a position of having to ask for it when a student clearly didn't want to answer at the beginning. That's what we've been looking at the past year.
We ask for a lot of other things that are not admissions decision, their address, their telephone number, so to me, this, requiring this is reasonable from the standpoint that we have to report it. If we didn't have to report it, then it's a moot point, but it's a real problem. Like Cindy said, I mean, you don't want to report a lot of unknowns. And truth be told, for our institution, this determines housing. And so if there's nothing in there, it blocks them in some sense from registering for housing because they don't know what norms to offer them or how to assign them.
Right, well, addresses to get in touch with them and, those types of things. But I'm noting this in the notes so that we can have a bigger conversation with our data. I don't know the purpose of the reporting requirements, so I couldn't help you there, but we can certainly ask those things, see what we can come up as a solution.
Hi, Anthony Perez from A&M San Antonio. So I think the bigger opportunity is update state reporting guidelines, right? But that's not within our purview within this committee. And then what do we do institution-wise to handle that? But I think if it's going to be on the ApplyTexas, it needs to be on more than just a yes or no. Maybe it's a choose not to answer or not applicable at the time. And then as an institution, then we have to do that work to kind of sort out what we need to sort out. But if it's ApplyTexas and it's meant to be, ApplyTexas might be a little bit outdated. State reporting is obviously a little outdated in what we gather. We need to be, I guess, as inclusive as possible to make sure that we're not offending our students and that we are accommodating them as much as possible. At AM San Antonio, we've done a secondary splash page through their student account to where if they don't identify as male or female, of course, they could provide the pronouns or gender identity. But if it's going to be on ApplyTexas, yes or no, making that a mandatory yes or no, I don't think is the right way to move forward for our students. If there's an opportunity for that kind of third option, that's still going to map to a U, but at least the student has their choice on the front end, and then on the back end, again, we can do that work to work with the student to update their information.
This is Amy from Central Texas College. I respectfully disagree. I think that data is important. Like you're saying, this is a data collection. And how do you identify target audiences? How do you have these needs that you have to fulfill, right? And so you're saying, okay, this male population is not doing as well in these classes, and this female population, that's how you identify them. We identify them through demographics. And because we are looking maybe later down the road at changing things within the state, the reporting and all of that, where we are right now is where we are right now. So right now we have to collect that data. Otherwise, all of us are doing how many extra man hours of work going and finding that data and not finding it. So I think that it's important to collect it, and I wouldn't like to table it. I would like to make a motion to move forward with it.
Okay, so is there any further discussion before we entertain a motion?
Well, perhaps, I think one of the issues here is probably that we're using the word gender, and it has a different connotation these days than it did when this was implemented. So I know on other apps, they ask for your legal sex at birth, and that's the required question. Students have to answer that, and it's male, female. And then there's a secondary question that addresses gender. And I think ultimately that would be a more well-rounded and better solution, because then you get more information and you don't risk, like you said, and I appreciate your perspective of offending the student. And I think that's part of the problem is we're saying gender, male, female, and they don't identify as that gender. And so they have no other options. But I know that to make those changes and to change that from gender to perhaps, their sex or their legal sex at birth may require a lot more approvals and a lot more vetting. But ultimately, I believe that's the direction it should go. And that, we're probably the only app that has not caught up to that.
Well, if this is going to move forward if it's going to be aligned with app cycles, then there is that opportunity to explore what would be the most appropriate way to address this, as opposed to making a decision yes or no. When we know that we're going to make a major change anywhere, there's that opportunity for the major change with the next app cycle. So I think that might be the better idea if it is a table, knowing that it's it's going to impact next app cycle, and not just make a decision based off of complete information or unresearched opportunities to address this the best way.
Amy Williams, Central Texas College. Would it need to wait until the app cycle? Isn't this a pretty quick fix? You can require it? No, it's not.
We could, but it has to go through a legal review, and so that's the timing issue.
Actually, requiring the question would be, yes, not a heavy lift. Any rewording or anything like that, we already have millions of applicants in the system that have answered this question as it is presently worded, so I think we'd want to proceed carefully there.
I think what Anthony was saying, if I'm understanding correctly, is that for the next cycle, we can consider these bigger changes that would affect next application cycle. So, but to your point, Amy, if we're able to say, yeah, we can start requiring it, it's just a simple switch to require. Is that correct, David? Or is there a bigger?
Correct, right. Right now, we're just not requiring them to answer this question. So it would be adding an audit to require them to answer this question.
And I think it would get right back into the question that I mean, right now, it's not required, so therefore people are getting a third option by not answering the question. If we require the question, we will have to encounter what do we do with folks that don't want to choose male or female?
And you still have those inconsistency, because this request is specific to, and from my hearing, is to data collection. So you're still not going to have appropriate data collection since you already started the application cycle. So is it worth making this change during this cycle, or waiting until the bigger conversations for next application cycle?
We've got several things on the table right now as far as, well, actually for consideration, nothing on the table yet, as far as what we can do. Is it something that we entertain a motion to do now, even though we have millions of apps currently, right? Or number two, is it something that we make a motion that we correct in the next cycle? Or do we need to table for OGC or any further review of that sort? So it seems like those are our three avenues at this point. Am I correct? Anybody want to dispute that, add to that, anything else?
I think that's correct. I would recommend you table, I mean, that's from my perspective personally, because this has become a larger conversation than just requiring the question, and it would take some time to do so. So I don't, just letting you know. And I don't think we need to vote for tabling. We just need to say that it's tabled.
So will we entertain a motion to table? Yes? No? The floor is open for a motion of some sort.
Yeah, I don't think
We
we
don't
need
have
to
to
motion for
Okay, well,
for
then we're
this.
just gonna table it.
But I
Table
do
it.
want to make sure that give the opportunity to anyone who's visiting virtually to have any discussion as well, if you have any thoughts.
I think it's a complicated issue. We have state reporting, we have federal reporting that also has certain categories. We have the preference of students, we have a movement, right? Social movement to change genders and pronouns and, provide those options. So I think it's much more complex than switching it on or off. So I do think it needs to be tabled for further discussion and probably some legal thought on how we proceed as a state in implementing those questions.
Any other further discussion?
Claudette, would you be able to take this to legal and get their input as far as perhaps their recommendation for handling this and verbiage for future questions rather than, because if we table it and then we come back next time, we haven't moved anywhere and we know we need legal input for it. So I'd like to see that move.
And that's where there are more than one question here. There's the question about, one, can we require this question? Two, are we able to just limit to male, female? Three, in other areas where this question is asked, are we able to include additional options? So there's multiple questions here that need to be reviewed. Did I capture all of them correctly? I want to make sure I captured them all first. Is that what okay. So that's what I'd go to, whether or not we can require it, whether or not it's just male, female. And the other layer to this is the reporting requirements, because from what I'm hearing is that this question is utilized in order to capture for reporting, that there are other ways, but this is one of the ways that institutions would prefer to use. But if we open it to some of the others' point, if we open it up to other than male, female, the reporting's still going to be an issue. So that's why we just have to I want to make clear that I'm asking the right questions to determine what the solution would be.
I think one of the other options, Claudette, to put on there is what Michelle proposed of having the dual question about the legal sex at birth, and then a gender, an actual, like a gender question, a gender identity question.
This is Cindy from Tarleton. I did check Banner before I came here, and I know we all don't use the Banner system, but a lot of us do. And it actually has on Spaden legal sex, gender designation, and personal pronoun. So it's already there. If, yeah. So, but apparently somebody's using it, and somebody's probably asking it on an application somewhere, or it wouldn't be there.
Did you?
So-
I heard you say legal sex. What was the second one?
Gender designation
Gender designation.
and personal pronoun.
We're using those at A&M San Antonio outside of. It's through a secondary splash page that we have through the student account, and it just lets them update that information. Again, I just think, and it'll probably be a further discussion, but we shouldn't tailor the app to meet state reporting. If state reporting might be a bigger social issue, or not even social issue, but a bigger issue that I don't think they're going to take on this social piece. But I think, again, just respecting our students, and if as an institution we have to take on that work as never a fan of taking on more work, but if we have to take on that work to make sure that we're respecting our students and still meeting our state and federal obligations, I think we should do whatever we can to do that and make sure Apply Texas reflects all of our students and not just reflect state reporting requirements.
Any other discussion on this topic?
Well, before we move, is there someone willing to email me just so I'm making sure that I ask the right questions? I've tried to capture it, but to our different perspectives, I'm not really sure what direction to go in at this point. So is there a clear question that I should take to legal? One, besides requiring the question, but is it that we want to require the question and add language saying that it's the legal by legal sex? Is that the question? Okay. And just for the one question, or do we want these other areas addressed as well with the gender identity and personal pronouns?
Well, I think you need to, I suggest that you do change the one question so that it is clear it's legal sex at birth. And that you find out, are we able, then can we add a gender question that is more inclusive? And it would be optional, that question, but can we add that? Are there any legal implications from adding an additional question?
What you're saying is the first part, the question at birth, is the required question, and the other one would be the optional.
And back to I'm hearing two different views, but I understand the purpose of some of the discussion with the data and the reporting. Do we still want me to go to talk to our data team about other ways in which we want to report this? Or I don't know how much I can move that because it's national, tied to national reporting, but I don't know if you'll have any.
I think it'd be good to go to them and ask what is viable, right, for them, for that reporting, just so we're aware of where they stand. How's that?
And just Maria from Amarillo College, I don't do the state reporting for our institution, but we do the data entry for the applications. And so, excuse me if I'm a little ignorant to the process, but what's the option if, for example, my office can't get a hold of a student to collect that information? When those of you who do the state reporting, what do you do when we're unable to get that from the application or reach the student when we attempt to contact them?
I think I heard Cindy say transcripts as well. Just moving through other records, documents that the student provided.
And that's the thing, it's a heavy lift. It's a lot of work to have to go and try to investigate, and like you said, Maria, if you're calling the student even, we don't have that option. We have way too many students to be calling them to ask them that question. Plus the fact, if they chose not to answer it, they'd probably be very offended if we called and asked them that. So we don't do that. But I think, I think you can lend some weight to this by looking at, I know Common App, which is used by a lot of universities, it asks for legal sex at birth and it's required. And the only options there are male, female. And then it does have a secondary gender question, which is very comprehensive and it's optional. So it does give students an opportunity. And the nice thing about it is you have your information that you need for reporting, perhaps for what Amy talked about in terms of looking at retention and, pass-fail issues, student issues, but you also can use the other information in a lot of ways to personalize that student's experience at your school. And so I think it's time we look at, catching up and asking both, if both are are useful. And then schools can use it or not use it as they see fit.
Amy Williams, Central Texas College. If I recall, in the last meeting, Miguel, which I don't want to butcher his name again, Miguel had mentioned that they were looking at all the applications that had already required that question in the custom questions. Was that study complete?
I don't know if I have that information available. So, and to be completely honest with you, I don't remember being charged for that. So, I mean, we can certainly take a look at it and see, but I don't remember that specific charge.
So this is Mardell with the University of Houston. I think to that question and Miguel's point, I'm wondering if to create some momentum around this rich discussion, should there be a subcommittee assigned to this really important topic that can help assist with the legal questions, that can help assist with what are other applications doing, but do that deep work and maybe come back to this group with some concrete recommendations that then can lead to a motion. Are we open to charging a small group to do the deep work around this topic?
You all can create a subcommittee if you'd like to. I mean, is Mardell, are you willing to lead it, or is there someone that's interested?
I brought it up, so I guess yes. That's the risk. I guess that's the risk I run, but I'm more than happy to. I know we do some things here at the University of Houston that might be helpful in with this discussion, but I just think to progress the discussion, there probably needs to be a small group of us that are doing the deep work and bringing some concrete answers for our next meeting. So we're kind of not spinning our wheels and back in the same point. And I'm happy to lead that.
And it doesn't necessarily, if you'd like to have it a subcommittee or just a special task, that's fine too. Because like we've mentioned, there are committees and, you know, Andy has the communications committee that he doesn't have. I think he's just one solo person. But then
David
we have,
volunteered as well, so I got David.
And David volunteered today, so that's great. And I think it's important, a definitely important subcommittee. But if we're willing to create a separate subcommittee, definitely can do that. Does anyone else want to work with Mardell on that?
Yeah, I can.
Can I make a recommendation that since this is topical, that it be an ad hoc committee to deal with the sole topic at hand? But I do agree, if we can get you a committee to help and not just be a one-person show.
Anthony, I heard you say you're interested?
Yes.
Any other volunteers?
Maria, Amarillo College.
Else?
Bianca Rodriguez from UTEP.
Cindy from Tarleton.
So it looks like we have Mardell chairing that group, and we have Anthony, Maria, Bianca, and Cindy. Is that correct? So are we good to move on from this topic? You have everything you need from.
Yes, and I'll work with you, Mardell, and the subcommittee to outline the questions again. I think I have it. Then we'll just set up a meeting and make sure that we have some recommendations to come forward to the next committee meeting.
That sounds great. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have any other items that need to be addressed, either from what our IT reps had proposed, or anything else that we need to, that was on the table, that we need to pull from the table? Okay, hearing none, we will move on to item number 13, and that is the discussion on potential agenda items and next meeting date. I will now turn it over to Claudette.
Thank you. So for this section, we're just going to ask if there's, the agenda that you have, we typically use that same sort of cadence of the agenda. But if there's anything else you want to include as an agenda item, we can discuss that now. So if you return to your agenda for today, I'll just walk through what we typically have. So it's just welcome, acknowledgement, we would typically have approval of the minutes, so it'd be welcome and introductions for the next meeting, approval of the minutes for this meeting. We'll probably continue an update on the future of ApplyTexas so we can keep you all and others informed. And then we have each of the subcommittee groups updates, and we'll be adding the additional subcommittee. I don't know what we want to call it. Committee. But what should we call that committee? Ad hoc. Ad hoc committee on data reporting, do you think, Mardell? I'm not sure if that's the appropriate.
The ad hoc committee, let's title it related to, the question is related to, is it the gender question on the application? Was it the ad hoc?
I think it's a gender.
Yeah, ad hoc committee
I'll
on.
leave it as a gender. I'll leave it as a gender. I was refraining from making that, but let's just
Oh,
go
I
ahead and
understand.
be transparent. What's that? Gender study?
Do we want to use legal sex if that's been kind of brought up as a potential?
I'm good with
Okay,
that.
we have, oh, I don't know if you heard, there might have been a different discussion. What about ad hoc on special topics? Like just keep it as a group, a general group
Oh.
for special interest. Does that sound good?
Yeah, because we have a number of questions under this, so we leaving it as special topics. We can kind of, we'll catch all the different questions we have to tackle here.
That's perfect. Thanks, Molly. Okay, so going back to the agenda, it'll be updates from each of the subcommittees, our ad hoc committee, our technical team will give an update on where we are in some of this. And since we're not introducing any new items for this application cycle that they'd be responsible for, it's just collecting any other recommendations. So we would be looking at for next application cycle, that would probably be a new solution. So we would just be capturing those recommendations and tabling them for the future solution. And then we have discussion again of those possible items, if any, and then the potential agenda items. Do you see anything else that might be added? We will have time to add them over if you hear or know anything between now and our next meeting, you can send it my way and I can add it to the agenda, but I just want to walk through what the typical cadence of the agenda is, and then you all have opportunities to add any others, but you'll have to shoot me an email. That sound good? Anyone virtual have any items that you want to include other than the new ad hoc special topics area? Anything you want to hear an update on that's not included in this agenda?
I know you asked them, but the vidlet, can we have that study, the documented study? I know we were going to
Yeah.
watch the video, but can we have it on paper form so we can review it as well?
We will see about getting that to you. I believe we're able to share. We just have to ask, as Molly mentioned earlier. And then, would it be helpful to have them? No, there's a couple, but I'm just thinking. So there may be interest in bringing some updates about legislative session or even on my Texas Future Works, but I might add those to the agenda as well. But I just wanted to let you all know, especially those that are new, that this is the regular cadence. Anything additional you can send my way. I might be adding those as we think about what would be good and relevant to this committee as well. Does that sound okay? Okay. So then, I think the next meeting. Okay, sorry. Yeah, so now is the time to start looking at your calendars. We typically like to schedule out the year, but we know that there's, it might not be good, but we can capture a few dates for now and however many times you all want to meet. As I mentioned at the beginning of this meeting, you're only statutorily required to meet 2 times a year. However, our meetings have gone 3 to 4 times a year. So if you have 2 dates between now and the end of May to meet, if we want to look at those now, or at least come to a decision on a date for the next meeting. Yeah, we'll have a meeting in February. Are there dates around February we should stay away from, or dates anyone wants to recommend? I think
How
we
about-
met the first week in
February
February.
5th to 8th for SACRA.
David, did you have a,
I was gonna say maybe the 22nd.
good, February 22nd? Does this work on a Wednesday, or are there days of the week you'd prefer we move to?
Don't want to, in case anyone might be traveling, I do want to mention that Mardi Gras was the 21st and the 22nd is Ash Wednesday. So in case people may have been somewhere.
The 2nd or the 16th?
Last year, we did have it on 2/2/22, so this past year, so I remember that. So it was the first week in February. If you guys want to have it, like you said, Amy, on the February 2nd, does that work for, I know you said.
SACRA's the week after. It starts the 5th. So that the 2nd wouldn't be an issue, I don't think.
2nd worked for me.
Everybody good with the 2nd? Any problems with the 2nd?
No, and I'm getting a little nervous about this ApplyTexas RFP and the possibility that it's a new solution in that translates to deploying another app. I mean, building and deploying an app. So I think the sooner we can give people heads up about that. I feel especially concerned about schools where ApplyTexas is their only app. I really hate to see it go away. I think ApplyTexas has some fantastic features. It's just had so much work go into it. It's really functioning very well. I hope that is not the solution, as it was Coalition's solution to, part with their application provider, and essentially then if you wanted to persist with them, you had to deploy a new app. And for most institutions, that is a heavy lift, and you've got to have some lead time. If that's what's going to happen, please tell us early, and I'll retire. Oh.
So our leadership has mentioned that we're trying to ensure there's no disruption, and that all of the similar capabilities of ApplyTexas will still be in existence. And whatever it takes to ensure that smooth transition is what we're going to do. I mean, Molly, I don't know if you have any additional comments to add.
Hi, everyone. I just want to assure everyone that a smooth transition is our top priority, based on both from our leadership, from the chosen vendor. We will make sure that that is clear. The good thing is that we have a working application. And so that means we have a really great plan B. And so we will make sure that when we make the switch, that it is smooth and everyone is ready. And we're going to start communicating very early, meaning within the next 2 weeks or so. You'll be receiving technical information to start preparing. But everything that we are looking at is that the connections that you currently have at your institution, we will be using those same connections. And so we are not anticipating a huge disruption. The work that we did with going to AWS will help us with that, make that transition. Okay, good,
I think it's a
good.
request too that, I'm not sure where we made the request for what we want to see on that application, but I definitely would really like to continue to receive the PDFs, the downloads. A lot of the CRMs nowadays, the ones that I've worked with, they do not provide that. They provide it on a one-on-one basis, but they don't give you all of the files. And a lot of audits for my military institutions, they need the actual application. And that is a great benefit of the ApplyTexas application.
The goal is not to change the application. It is, if there are things that are working and things, it is to enhance the application. So any current functionality, we plan to continue to have that functionality. And then part of our discovery phase, we will be reaching out if there are specific things that we can do to really enhance the process. And we will make sure that we put that into the roadmap.
So I think that, the communications committee, this is why, y'all, it's important that we do get a group of people on there to be able to get information out, to be able to support what you're going to be doing. And I think that if we could request, I think that, people still probably have a little bit of PTSD from last time. But, the situation, if we could at that point, at intervals along the way, maybe have a meeting or maybe a small town hall or something, just to keep people informed. Because like Michelle was saying, blood pressures will rise. Anytime you implement something new or whatever that could impact either things going into ERP systems or exiting from, it's going to make people's blood pressures rise in this room and outside this room. So if we could along the way, that would be a good recommendation if we could.
Thank you for sharing that, Andy. So I'm going to ask you all as a committee, what would be preferred? In crisis mode, we created weekly stand-up meetings. But to be proactive, what would be a preferred method? Would it be biweekly updates? Would it be, because we mentioned we'd come to you all to update you on progress, but to keep connected with all the institutions, we want to make sure we have a manageable communication plan in place with our new solutions. So would it be maybe a monthly update that we could provide? I don't want to commit to anything, but just understanding what would your time allow for?
So we want to be helpful and supportive as we can for you. So if the communications committee can help you get information out on a regular, I don't think a weekly meeting, that's going to drag your time and the people that are going to be doing it, and I think everyone else. If it could either be biweekly or monthly, I think might be good to be able to have the parties in the meeting. Maybe it's something monthly, depends on what y'all think. But certainly I think, probably weekly is overkill. But, we want to be respectful of everybody's concerns and along the process.
I think biweekly would be a good option to begin. Because if somebody misses a meeting, if you're doing it monthly, you're just so far behind that you can't catch up. But biweekly would be good to start. And then if you find, like we did with the other, you found that, okay, it wasn't necessary weekly, so we went to a biweekly. Yeah, and then you could go to monthly if you find that everybody's okay and things are moving as you expect. But that would be really good. And I really loved the meetings. Those are better than just an email. Just a face-to-face where people can hear other people's concerns and
The stand-ups, the regular stand-up meetings?
yeah, the biweekly. Yeah, and it doesn't have to be long. It can be a 30-minute touch base. Maybe the first one is going to be a little longer to introduce, but after that it can be quick. Yeah, that was really, really helpful when we went to that with the crisis.
Right. No, I appreciate that feedback.
And if possible, if it could start as soon as you have an idea of this, not even idea, but as soon as you have some concrete, this is what's happening, and you have information to share, because it did feel a little after the fact. It was good information once it got going, that we needed to know, but if it's, as soon as there's some concrete, this is the plan moving forward, initiate those meetings, and that way everyone has that time to adjust and get comfortable and let the panic like spread out over time instead of like all at once, I guess.
Well, our goal is to not have the panic. We're trying everything, as Molly mentioned, we're trying everything possible to ensure that smooth transition. So we've learned from past experience, but in our proposal, we did request that it's similar functionality, request all the similar items, just enhancing the applications where we're focused.
I have one other question. You said you want to enhance what's already there. What do you anticipate changes for the price point of what the institutions are going to be charged to use this new, if we're going with a third party? Is that going to be consistent with what it used to be too, or is that going to have to change depending on vendor?
It depends on the new solution. And like we mentioned, or I mentioned earlier, we're looking at our proposals now, so we don't have any new information or really can't speak to anything just yet, but that's where we would be. I really don't know yet until we see those numbers. Right. Any other questions from our Zoom or online?
So we've got a date for our next meeting, and so are we ready to move to the last agenda item? Okay, moving on to agenda item 14, and that is adjournment. This concludes the business of the ApplyTexas Advisory Committee for November 2nd, 2022. If there is no further discussion, do I have a motion for adjournment? Not everybody at once.
I move that
So
we,
moved by Amy.
I
Is there a
second it.
second?
Second it.
Okay, so Beverly. All right, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor will please say aye.
Aye.
All those
Aye.
opposed, all those opposed say no. All right, motion carries. This meeting is hereby adjourned at 11:45 a.m. Have a safe trip home.
Thank you, everybody.